This is the all-new BMW 1 Series, the cheapest car the Bavarians will sell you with their famous roundel on the front. And this is it in its cheapest guise for Australia, the 118i in M Sport trim. And don't go thinking that those M Sport badges feel entirely misplaced on something like this, because it's actually far more fun than you'd think.
From the second you get behind the wheel, this thing is just so much fun. It might not be a full-on hardcore hot hatch or anything like that, in fact it's far from it in terms of its power output, but it feels really tight, really nimble, really responsive. I mean, it's off to a good start.
Now, the 1 Series is really intended to pick up where cars like the Volkswagen Golf and Mazda 3, the most upscale of the normal hatchbacks out there, leave off, and it's easy to see that it feels like a premium product. On the inside, not only do you get the latest in BMW's slick iDrive infotainment technology, but you get a high-quality array of materials too. From the faux leather to the blue cloth that punctuates it, all the way down to the plastics and switchgear, everything just feels that step above the step above. As a defendant of most of BMW's current designs, I think it looks good too, imposing with that big grille up front and set off perfectly in this stunning Storm Bay metallic paintwork sat on some big M-branded wheels. So far, so good.
But, and it is a big but this one, I'm talking Kim K J-Lo sized, this is very un-BMW-like in one way, and that's because it's front-wheel drive. Now, it might not be the first car to have a BMW roundel on the front that is front-wheel drive. There was the 2 Series Active Tourer and the X1 that came before it, but it is the first 1 Series to be front-wheel drive, and after all, the whole point of this car originally was to be a rear-wheel drive hatchback. What's more, it only has about half the engine it should have as well, a 1.5 litre 3-cylinder turbo from a Mini. But does that mean that this now feels like half the car it used to?
In short, no, not really.
From where I'm sitting, it feels pretty BMW-ish if you ask me. It turns in really confidently, and the steering just feels totally like every other BMW steering rack you'll come across right now, which is to say, brilliant. Now, sure, it might not allow for any of the rear-wheel drive heroics the past 1 Series models did, but if you're able to get past the fact that you won't be able to go hanging the tail end out on this thing, which seems pretty unnecessary in a city hatchback anyway, it's totally fine. I don't even mind this little 3-cylinder engine that's in it because, for one thing, it makes a fantastic noise. And what's more, even though it doesn't make a whole lot of power, I mean 0 to 100 is only around 8.5 seconds, it does feel really responsive, especially lower down. It might start to taper off at the top end, although it'll happily rev out to about 6,500. But keeping it in that mid-range, which the 7-speed dual-clutch gearbox that controls it will try to do, it just feels really great. It feels almost like a 4-cylinder in terms of its effortlessness. And I mean, the good thing about it not having heaps of power is that it does keep torque steer in check without the need for a tricky differential up front. Now, I'm not going to act like torque steer is non-existent, because at lower speeds through tighter corners, if you get really hard on the throttle, you will definitely feel some, and certainly it's still very unusual experiencing torque steer while I'm looking at a BMW badge in the middle of this steering wheel. But it's so minimal, and only really in circumstances where you're driving, well, the way you shouldn't be, that I can happily deal with that. It's not really a performance car though anyway, this thing. It's meant to be a premium feeling hatchback, and for that, I mean, it absolutely nails the brief. From where I'm sitting, it feels like a fantastic BMW interior with a practical hatch body. I don't need it to feel like an M3, because I'm not buying one of these if I want it to feel like an M3. If I want something that feels like an M3, I'm going to buy one of those. The other good thing as well about it being front-wheel drive is that BMW has been able to address a couple of the criticisms relating to the fact that this is a hatchback. Previously it had a tiny back seat and an even tinier boot. Thankfully, with no need for a differential or drive shafts back there, they've been able to push the rear seats further back and lower down to actually help fit humans in there. And even though when you open up the boot it might not look that much larger than it used to be, it's actually a false floor you're seeing, and if you fold that away, well, you've got even more storage space beneath it. So, far more practical than it used to be.
There's no doubt then that the shift to front-wheel drive to open up some more space in the rear has helped make the 1 Series a much better car, one that's more practical and economical. But although it still feels like a BMW in terms of tactile things such as the steering and ride tuning, it must be said that the old model was more inspiring, engaging. Rear-wheel drive may have made its boot pathetically small, but it did make it a more fun car. This new 1 Series is objectively a good car, however, nice to be in and nice to drive, and although this will almost only be purchased by those looking for the cheapest way to get that BMW badge, at least they'll be getting a pleasant car with it.